All right, in the last video, we finished off with the current audience perception. So in other words, let's first say the restaurant's already in existence. How does the audience see the restaurant now? So typically your client would approach you and say, the problem I see right now is that my audience sees this restaurant as just a place to go once every 6 months. I want this to become their family hangout. And then you would rebrand the restaurant accordingly. If the restaurant's never opened before, then the current audience perception would be what you think or your client thinks people think of, maybe, for example, that type of food or that type of food combined with this type of atmosphere, and how you can make that perception better through your branding to get more people coming through the door. Maybe people are scared of trying that food, whatever. Anything that you can think of that would be a real world situation would be something that you would write in the brief as it pertains to your restaurant. So you have what the current perception is and what the desired perception is. So again, you want to make up a persona for each. Well, let's just start with the first one. So you want to make up a persona about the primary target audience so that we feel like when we read your brief that we were actually introduced to that person. You gave them a name, an occupation, all the stuff that is listed up here. Then you do the same thing for your secondary target audience. So what does that mean? What's a secondary target audience? Usually you have some key demographic that you want coming through the door. But then you also think, but I would also like to appeal to these people. Now, I may not appeal to this demographic as much, but it's still something that we should be shooting for to get them to come into the restaurant. So one example might be if you have a food that is from another country, your primary audience might be people who have never left the United States but have money and want to come in and try different foods, and you describe that. But you say the secondary target audience could be people that are from that country, and I want them to also feel like this is made for them since it's their food. And that could be flip-flop, where you could say, let's say it's a Polish restaurant. I could say, okay, my primary target audience will be people that were actually born in Poland that are living in Southern California. That's who I want this restaurant to appeal to. But also, there's no reason that I shouldn't get people who have no idea about Polish food, who've never been introduced to it. I want to appeal to them. So I want the graphics to be eye-catching, where someone would say, hey, let's try something different tonight. And then the fifth paragraph describes the tone, look, feel, personality of the product. In this case, again, a restaurant. So use descriptive adjectives to describe the overall design approach. And again, you're not giving away your solutions here, but you really want us to feel like we're experiencing your product right now. So you just describe that like you just walked in the door of the restaurant and you see the logo on the wall, and the logo has this type of feel. Don't spell out the logo. You don't want to give away your work. You also want to make us feel like we're looking at the walls in the restaurant, maybe looking at the booths. Just what do we feel? What are we seeing? What kind of mood did that put us into? Make us feel like we are there experiencing the restaurant visually. You really don't need to describe food dishes unless you think that really helps get the whole feel across. But it's mostly you're a visual problem solver. And while you are in here looking at the instructions, go ahead, go down to the Creative Brief Project rubric and look at how I will be grading this. And you can see it's literally broken down into those 5 paragraphs that you will be writing. And I may have said 6 paragraphs earlier, In fact, I think I did, so I'll have to look for that and correct it. But it is 5 paragraphs, and then the 6 criteria is just the overall format of the paper, making sure that it is actual sentences and paragraphs. So now that you know all that, the first step after the research is to create an outline to make it much easier to write the actual creative brief paper. Now, to aid you in making an outline and so that I'll be able to grade it, we need to follow some certain conventions here. So we'll use this format of starting with Roman numerals, then down to capitalized letters, Arabic numerals, and then lowercase letters. Now, I found a website here. I'm not going to give you the link to it. I mean, you can Google it if you want to. The only problem is I don't want you to depend on being able to find this because things obviously change on the web. So I'm just going to use it here to give you some help, some guidance in putting together the outline. You may or may not know a lot of this from your writing classes, but just feel free to at any time pause this and read these. It just goes over the purpose of creating an outline to get that hierarchy of information processed, and that's done through the indentation of the outline, steps in getting started with the outline, which we've kind of pretty much talked about. Got to do the research, interview your client, get all your ideas across, scribble out some notes, and then you can go ahead and start to break it down. Now, although there's multiple types of outlines, we are going with this style again. And the reason is because I refer to the Roman numerals in the rubric. I will show you an outline example specifically aimed at this project. But before we do this, let's go in and look at the actual outline assignment. But this will be a graded assignment. So it's a great way for you to, before you commit to a project grade, do a preparation grade, show me what you're about to write, and get some feedback. But it is really the key ingredient to writing the paper. You'll have everything outlined, and then writing it will be easy. So if you look at the instructions here, it says make sure that you look at the creative brief project, which I've already done in the videos with you. But of course, go through, refresh yourself before you actually write this. Make sure you're giving all of the content that's relevant, and then look at the rubric for this, and you'll see that I'm looking for it to consist of a hierarchical structure starting with the Roman numerals and so on. And then when I actually go to grade it, instead of saying paragraph 1, paragraph 2, I'm saying Roman numeral number 1, then 2. But it's basically all of the same stuff that we just covered. So you definitely want to go back and watch that part of the video. Don't just try jumping in here and writing your outline, because you will be totally lost. You first have to understand this, both written and video wise. Okay, so now with that in mind, let's continue on and let's just look at an example that breaks all of this down into, first of all, let's talk about the format. So you can see there's your Roman numeral 1, and then if you scroll down 2, 3, they're all the way over to the left. And then the next major point is a letter, capital, and then a regular number or an Arabic number, and then you have your A, B's, and C's, and D's as necessary. So then let's start with Roman numeral 1, project name, client name, and project summary, just like we talked about in the things. But this is, just like we talked about in the video earlier. But this time you get to see a little fictitious example broken in here. So you're saying what the project is. It's the actual branding of that restaurant. I made up a name. So instead of putting my name here now, I made up a new name for my client, and talk about the assigned signifiers for the restaurant. But nowhere as you're doing this do you say something like, I was assigned an upscale Polish food 5-star restaurant. No, that sounds like an assignment. It's not good for the creative brief. You want a creative brief that sounds professional, so you will lose points if you make it sound like it's an assignment. So use your imagination, make it sound like it's real. So again, in here you're covering the project, by name, the client by name, and the project summary. Now, like I said in the paper part of the video, write this last after all of the other stuff has been done. So we're still in the beginning stages. We're going to move on and outline the project. So you can pause this and see some examples that I just made up, just like I want you to do for your particular restaurant. I used a restaurant that's not on the list just so that it wouldn't look like I was favoring any one particular restaurant. Then we move on to Roman numeral number 3, which becomes eventually paragraph number 3. We talk about the client, the product, and the competition. So there's my fictitious breakdown of my client. Then I talk about what the restaurant, when our product, the restaurant, will actually be, where it will be, give a little bit of a description of it. Again, make it up. The only one that you don't really want to make up is the item number C, the competition. What type of restaurants are nearby that do the same thing that your client's restaurant does? Then we move on to the target audience. We're going to make a personification, which just means like a made-up person that makes us feel like we're being introduced to him. So we actually make up a name, make up an age, make up an occupation. And as far as making up, I mean we're making it up that fits within that idea of the ideal client. We make up an income that fits, hobbies that fits, what they do online, and then perception. Right now, Polish food is not high on our list because she thinks it doesn't sound that interesting. So how do you, as a designer, make Polish food sound interesting to her? What's your logo going to look like? What's your menu going to look like? How, if somebody walks in the door, are you going to snag their attention and keep them there? And you're not actually going to write that stuff in there. Again, I'm just trying to make you think as you read through these or make these creative briefs what the purposes they serve. You're not giving away your solutions, you're just describing things. So right now we've got the personification of the primary target audience. So if you were to kind of sum that up, that would be like a younger-ish person with a good income that wants to try new things. Then we come up with the personification of the secondary target audience. And if we were to just sum this up generically, it would be someone actually from the country of origin that matches the food in the restaurant. Probably an older person with a good established business that enjoys spending time with the family, enjoys a good home-cooked meal. Again, originally from Poland, enjoys home-cooked meal, but his wife only enjoys cooking Mexican food. So you want to get that Polish family in there. We move on to Roman numeral 5, which will become paragraph number 5. And this paragraph 5 and paragraph 1 are the most important, and you can see they get the most points on the rubrics. But here you really want to make us feel like we're there. Just like in the previous paragraph, you made us feel like you just introduced us to two people. Now you want us to feel like, when implemented, what is the feel of the restaurant and possibly the logo and the menu, if it makes sense to be describing that at this point. You have a lot of creative license in this as to what you talk about, but make us feel like we are there. And again, pretend you're the scout going out. You met with the client. Now you have to bring home your findings to the rest of your design team so that they can design a good logo and a good menu and a good package design. So I just put a lot of X's in here because I don't want anyone to feel like this is the way that this should be done, but I just want to kind of see the kind of adjectives that we're looking for. So the restaurant feels like, but not like, the walls have, the seating has a feel of, the waiters wear, don't necessarily feel like you have to do all these things, and feel free to come up with your own. When you sit down, you feel blank because you see blank. There are something placed throughout the blank to give a sense of blank. There's a small blank in the corner to blank. The menu makes you think of because it has a blank.